order to properly answer this. We have little data on unpaid care, in particular for us Indigenous in Canada, and potential undercounting of paid and paid care work as well. So care economy is big, wide-ranging concept that stretches over many disparate fields of research and division. So we have labor, health, and business, and is difficult to coordinate. We have to be careful not to create too much new data, and maybe things can be done through linkages, but again, we need to be careful on how we access those, if we can access those, and if they are supplemental to the data that we're having. So in the future, one of our aim would be to do a feasibility study on paid care workers to better get a social care aspect. This is one of the data gaps that we have found and would like to get at as soon as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patricia. And thank you very much for being respectful for the time and also bring us this broad, wide concept of care economy, including not only the goods and services that we trade in the market as care paid work, but also the ones that are carried out at home, at the households for no pay. So thank you very much. Now I think we go to Colombia with Manuel Pava. So Manuel, the floor is yours.
Hello. Okay. It's working? Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manuel Pava. I'm from the National Department of Statistics of Colombia. So these are the topics for today. I'm going to talk about care economy's satellite account, then how we build NTA, National Transfers Accounts, and National Transfers Time Accounts for the first time in our institute. Then I'm going to show some results for 2017 and 2021 preliminary, and finally the main highlights and conclusions. So, start with care economy satellite account. So, well, but first I want to talk about a national survey of time use. This is traditional time use survey. In Colombia, the National Time Survey is a research carried out by our institute to generate information on the time dedicated by the population aged 10 and over to paid, unpaid, and personal work activities. Our first publication or dissemination, the results, was in 2014 with reference period August 2012 and July 2013. This survey allows provide information on the hours dedicated to unpaid care and domestic work activities necessary for the construction of the care economic satellite account. It's essential for do that, and produce information for the formulation, follow-up, and evaluation for public policy with a gender focus on issues of time use, and provide information for the formulation, monitoring, and evaluation of public policy on issues related to use time. We made this every 3 years, but we are working so that they become 2. In the link in the slide, you can find more information. So we made also current economic satellite account. We started this measurement in 2013 in complements with Law 1413 of 2010. Our institute presented the first phase of the account, which include the economic valuation of domestic work and unpaid care. The main objective of this account is to carry out the inclusion of the information of domestic work and unpaid care in an extended analytical framework of the system of national accounts of Colombia, as an instrument to measure its contribution to the economic and social development of the country. The Care Economic Satellite Account incorporates alternative concepts to the system and expanding its analytical capacity by assigning a monetary valuation to unpaid care work and calculating its value for each of the satellite account functionalities, like food supply, clothing, cleaning, shopping and household management, care and support of people, and finally volunteering. This little scheme with our account start with the National Survey of Time Use. Is our main source for do that. Also, we use household integrated survey and monetary power data. We use the replacement cost methodology, and through the National Time Use Survey, we can find the annual hours of unpaid domestic and care work. All of this to get the economic value of unpaid domestic and care work by sex, functionality, and other indicators. In 2021, we estimate that the economic value of unpaid work as a wage relative of GDP is around 18%. We can see some results of our satellite account. We can see the annual hours of unpaid domestic and care work by functionality. You can see the amount of hours that the women dedicate in Colombia for 2021 was almost 32 million hours per year, almost 80% of the total hours. So, the title of the presentation was National Transfers Accounts. This is a relative new measurement that we made, and around the world, we are the second office statistic that they made. Statistics Korea was the first institute that made this kind of measurement. So in 2021, we start this project, the development of the NTA measurement for Colombia. For the first time, we generate an articulate work between different technical divisions into our institute, and with the full support of the Latin American and Caribbean Demographic Center of ECLAC, through the consultant Piedra Turdinola and the NTA network. NTA network is an amazing network that leads this topic around the world, and we use a lot of information, but the main source for that is National Household Budget Survey, some administrative records, and finally integrate economic accounts for this year. All of this, we can estimate per capita profiles of the NTAs by income, consumption, transfers, and reallocations. Before that, in this year, our institute begins the project to measure national time transfers accounts. This topic is very interesting because we can join different topics like demographic, time use, and national accounts in the same measurement. For the first time, we will make this officially, being the first statistical office to carry out of this measurement officially. We can use obligatory national survey of quality life for 2021, career economy satellite account, and time use survey, and also integrate economic accounts for 2021. All of this led us per capita profiles of NTA and NTTAs of income, consumption, transfers, and reallocations. So I'm going to show some results. For 2027, it was the labor income per capita profiles. You can see a graphic as a bell. The more dark line is labor income total. People in Colombia achieve the maximum labor income at the age 40, almost $7,000 per year, and lower income of employees achieved in 35 years, and the lower income of self-employees at the age 52. This little comparison with labor income composition of 28 and 2017. And we have the profiles of consumption. We distinguish between public consumption and private consumption. The public consumption has a particularity because the public consumption in education has a behavior, a special behavior at the between 5 years to 20 years, because it's the normally age that the people get the studies. And this is the most popular graphic in NTAs. It's an economic life cycle per capita. We can find deficit stage of early age, superplus stage, and deficit stage of advantage age. Okay. So for this event, we estimate preliminary result for 2021 NTA by gender. This is our preliminary labor income profiles by sex. In the gray line, we can find labor income for men, and violet line, labor income for women. It's clear the difference between both lines, but in consumption, we have a similar behavior between women and men. So we can make these graphics, the economic life cycle per capita for women and men, according these lines. Women don't generate superplus stage. The men generate a superplus stage almost between 28 to 62 years. Later, I'm going to show similar situation But first, I'm going to talk national time transfers accounts. NTTA is conceptually linked with gender due the value of women's specialization in in-care work production is outside of national income. The methodology of that is the product of efforts over time by working group on gender and time use with the National Transfers Account Project Network. NTA also allows the analysis of the NTA to be extended to include the economic valuation of the unpaid care work, sorry. It always allows to show the production and consumption care by age and especially by gender. So I take this example from Gretchen Donhauer. She writes practically the methodology of this. And this example is from United States in 2009. You can see similar situation in Colombia. With the woman don't generate superplus stage, but when incorporate NTTA, that is in the below graphics, you can see the superplus stage that generate women. So it's very important to consider and generate NTTA for a complete analysis. So finally, the resume and conclusions. These are a special line time. We resume our efforts from our institute, and these some insights for Colombia experience. The NTA and NTTA require to guarantee a higher frequency of income and expenses surveys and time use surveys. Also, a strong institutional framework is an enabler for ensuring the continuity of the measurement of NTA and NTTA, and NTTA and NTA as tool for public policies. Dissemination is very important for this. One of the remaining challenges with the statistical production of NTA and NTTA is the disaggregation of the results. And maybe that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Thank you very much for your presentation and the complexity of the figures, but how we needed to put it in a disseminated, communicable way in order to understand what's going on. And I keep this phrase that women, we have not surplus, so I stay concerned about that. I just share with you, in the case of Colombia, an anecdote that Manuel started the timeline and the presentation talking about a law that was approved, was signed in 2010 in Colombia, and I will talk to you the backstage of that law. That law was presented by a senator, yes, a representative, a parliamentary women in the parliament of Colombia. She is Cecilia López Montaño, a very popular politician in Colombia, that was invited a meeting, the same meeting that we do in Latin America as this global one that we do in Mexico every year. And she was real astonished and very wondered and very surprised about all the information in the region and all the advances, but also challenges, and how this kind of information could be related with policymaking. So she wrote a law, and she went to the parliament, and this law that now in 2023 give us all this kind of information and ask or mandate the DANE, the Departamento Administrativo Nacional de Estadísticas from Colombia, to carry out every 3 years this survey and calculate the satellite account on unpaid work, is rely on this normative and how Parliament also be involved in this kind of process, linking the gender statistics production with the good way to use it. So that I remember when I was hearing Manuel. Thank you very much. So, and now the floor is with you, Yatu. I didn't tell you, but we share with the country delegates the same question that I raised to Patricia, so they are guided by challenges and also good practices or lessons learned in their own countries. You have the presentation, isn't it?
Yes.
Ah, now it's.
Oh, sorry. So, can you hear me? Thank you, Lucia. I am delighted to share with you Moroccan experience in producing household satellite account, but I will do it in French.
Is system translation on your tables, so if you need, please take it.
Ok. Dans mon exposé, je vais aborder les éléments suivants. Premièrement, pourquoi un compte satellite des ménages. Deuxièmement, on va présenter un petit peu les références internationales auxquelles on s'est référé pour produire ce compte satellite. Puis on va présenter SNA boundary, la frontière de la comptabilité nationale. I'm so sorry because I have it in English and I have to speak in French.
Yeah.
Donc la frontière des comptes nationaux, puis la méthodologie de compte satellite des ménages. Et on va présenter les éléments saillants de notre compte, c'est-à-dire les résultats de ce compte. Puis, je vais vous parler un petit peu d'un exercice ou d'une expérience inédite au Maroc qui va utiliser les données de compte satellite des ménages pour évaluer les politiques publiques. Donc, c'est à travers des données du compte satellite des ménages, on va évaluer les politiques publiques qui visent à limiter ou réduire les inégalités entre hommes et femmes, spécialement dans le secteur de care économie de la prise en charge et dans l'empowering women, donc dans l'autonomisation des femmes et leur intégration dans le marché du travail. Et puis je vais finir par les défis auxquels on s'est confronté dans la production de ce compte. Comme vous le savez tous, les agrégats de la comptabilité nationale, et spécialement le PIB, il ne prend pas en considération un ensemble d'activités productives des ménages. Et il s'agit spécialement des activités qui concernent les services non marchands des ménages et les services spécialement domestiques. Parce qu'il y a une partie des services non marchands des ménages qui est introduite dans les comptes nationaux. Mais tout ce qui est travail domestique des ménages non marchands, il n'est pas pris en considération dans les comptes nationaux. Et l'objectif de ce compte satellite des ménages est de repousser ces frontières de la comptabilité nationale pour y introduire une valorisation de travail domestique des ménages et pour produire une mesure plus étroite du bien-être. Parce que, comme vous le savez, ces activités non marchandes des ménages, ils ont un impact très positif sur le bien-être des ménages et les comparaisons du bien-être au niveau mondial qui se font spécialement et uniquement sur les agrégats de la comptabilité nationale et sur le PIB spécialement, ils ne donnent pas vraiment une vision très claire de la nature de bien-être pour chaque économie et pour la population de chaque pays. D'accord. Donc, les objectifs de ce compte satellite est de valoriser le travail domestique des ménages et de mettre en exergue l'importance du travail de la femme dans la sphère domestique et de bien sûr produire des comptes qui vont au-delà ou qui vont dépasser les frontières de la comptabilité nationale et produire quelque chose qui est le PIB élargi. Pour les références internationales, la comptabilité nationale marocaine, comme dans la majorité des pays qui ont produit des comptes satellites des ménages, il se réfère à certaines références internationales, spécialement le système de la comptabilité nationale, un manuel de l'Eurostat sur la valorisation du travail de la production et de la consommation des ménages, et puis une méthodologie pour le compte satellite des ménages. Puis il y a le manuel de l'UNICE sur la valorisation du travail domestique des ménages, et puis une note d'orientation du groupe qui est chargé du travail sur le bien-être et le bien-être des ménages. Peut-être que je ne vais pas m'attarder beaucoup sur tout ce qui concerne la frontière de la production de la comptabilité nationale, parce que, comme on le sait, la comptabilité nationale elle prend en considération toutes les productions des biens, qu'ils soient pour la consommation ou pour le marché, mais il ne prend pas en considération un ensemble de services non marchands qui sont réalisés au niveau des ménages et dans la sphère domestique des ménages. Et c'est pourquoi, comme je l'ai dit, dans ce compte satellite, on vise à valoriser le travail domestique et donner une valeur à ces services-là, parce que lorsque je dis valoriser les services domestiques, ça va au-delà de la valorisation du travail, et je vais vous en parler après. Donc, quelles sont les activités qu'on a prises en considération dans notre compte? Pour la prise en considération d'une activité dans le compte satellite, il doit répondre à 2 critères principaux. Il faut que ça soit une activité productive, c'est-à-dire que c'est une activité qu'on peut déléguer à une autre personne. Il faut que ce soit une activité non payée, sinon elle est déjà dans les comptes nationaux. Donc pour les activités qu'on a dans notre compte satellite, nous avons les activités de la préparation de repas, les activités d'entretien de logement et de la maintenance, les activités de l'entretien de vêtements et des chaussures, les activités de shopping et de faire les courses pour le ménage. On a une spécialité au Maroc, c'est qu'on a évalué le service de transport non marchand. On a également les services de prise en charge des enfants et des adultes. Et à la fin, nous avons tout ce qui concerne le travail volontaire. J'ai un problème, j'arrive pas à voir. Donc, quelles sont les méthodologies recommandées pour l'évaluation de travail domestique? Il y a, comme vous le savez, peut-être la majorité d'entre nous le savent, il y a 2 méthodologies pour l'évaluation du travail domestique ou des services domestiques produits par les ménages. Il y a l'optique output et l'optique input. Pour l'optique output, on a besoin d'avoir le volume ou les quantités des services produits qu'on va multiplier par un prix de marché qui soit équivalent pour trouver à la fin la valeur de la production. Mais pour l'optique input, c'est une optique qui est la plus utilisée. Elle est basée sur la somme des charges qui sont encourues dans la production d'un service domestique. Lorsque je dis des charges, c'est-à-dire que sont les inputs, par exemple, pour produire un repas. Pour produire un repas, on a besoin de quoi? On a besoin peut-être de viande, on a besoin de légumes, on a besoin d'épices, on a besoin de l'huile, je ne sais pas, on a besoin peut-être, on a besoin soit d'électricité ou de gaz pour produire ça et pour le préparer, mais on a besoin également du travail. Donc le facteur travail, il est important dans la production de ce service. Et également, pour la production de ce service, on a besoin d'un ensemble de durables, d'actifs qu'on va utiliser. Ces actifs, ils peuvent être quoi? Ils peuvent être le logement, bien sûr, le logement dans lequel on est. Également, parmi ces actifs, une gazinière qu'on va utiliser pour la préparation de repas, et j'en passe. Donc, l'optique qui est la plus utilisée, c'est celle-là. Donc, pour la comptabilité nationale et pour la production ou pour la valorisation de travail domestique, on va avoir tous ces éléments-là, c'est-à-dire les consommations intermédiaires qu'on va utiliser, le facteur travail, et on a également un facteur capital. Et comme ça, on aura des valorisations qui sont équivalentes à ce qu'il y a sur le marché. Parce que lorsqu'on va parler de la préparation de repas, il faut qu'on parle de la même chose. Un plat préparé à la maison, dans sa valeur, on doit avoir la même valeur d'un plat, la même valeur, c'est-à-dire tous les éléments qui sont dans un plat qui lui correspond, qui est sur le marché. C'est-à-dire, lorsque je vais acheter un plat sur le marché, qu'est-ce qu'il y a dedans? Il y a la valeur des intrants, il y a également la valeur du travail, parce qu'on doit payer quelqu'un pour produire ça. Il y a également un revenu pour celui qui est propriétaire de capital. Donc, c'est ça l'optique. Là, je vais passer plusieurs slides, comme ça pour vous présenter un petit peu les éléments saillants de notre compte satellite. Dans le compte satellite des ménages au Maroc, on a ces comptes qui sont genrés, si vous voulez. On a les données pour les femmes et également les données pour les hommes, pour mettre en exergue effectivement cette implication des femmes qui est plus importante que celle des hommes dans les activités domestiques. Donc, si vous voulez, la valeur ajoutée de travail domestique au Maroc, c'est pratiquement 19,4% du PIB marocain. Mais 84% de ce PIB, de cette valeur ajoutée, elle est produite par les femmes, alors que uniquement 16% est produit par les hommes. Ça veut dire que les femmes produisent pratiquement 5 fois en termes de services domestiques que ce qui est produit par les hommes. Par activité, qu'est-ce qu'on peut voir? On peut voir que les femmes, l'activité des femmes, elle est concentrée dans tout ce qui est préparation de repas, tout ce qui est entretien de ménage et de logement, et tout ce qui est entretien de lessive, alors que les hommes, ils sont principalement sur tout ce qui est shopping et tout ce qui est service de transport. Donc, vous voyez également cette différenciation. Les hommes, ils sont dehors, les femmes, ils sont à la maison, quoi. Un autre élément qu'on veut partager avec vous, c'est la contribution des femmes qui sont en situation d'emploi et les femmes qui sont soit inactives ou en chômage. Vous pouvez voir que les femmes qui sont en emploi, pratiquement dans le meilleur des cas, elles participent pour à peu près 22% de la valeur ajoutée. C'est le cas de la préparation de repas, l'entretien de logement et j'en passe. Est-ce que ça veut dire que les femmes qui travaillent, ils sont libérées de travail domestique? Non, parce que ces données-là, ils cachent une réalité qui concerne le taux d'activité des femmes. Le taux d'activité des femmes au Maroc, c'est pratiquement 25%. Donc, pour voir effectivement l'engagement des femmes dans les travaux domestiques ou dans le travail non rémunéré, vous pouvez voir que les femmes qui sont en situation d'emploi dans les activités de préparation de repas, pratiquement, et ils s'engagent ou ils passent 2 heures, je ne vois pas les chiffres. Exactement, 2h28 pour la préparation des repas, alors que les femmes qui sont inactives ou en chômage, ils passent 2h48, 47. Vous voyez que la différence n'est pas grande. Ça veut dire qu'il y a un double fardeau pour les femmes qui travaillent par rapport aux femmes qui sont en chômage ou qui sont inactives. Un autre élément, ça concerne la contribution des enfants et des filles. Je ne vous ai pas dit que notre enquête sur l'emploi de temps, il couvre également les femmes, les hommes et les enfants. Donc, vous pouvez voir que les filles, ils produisent pratiquement 3 fois plus que les garçons en termes de services domestiques. Donc, ça veut dire qu'ils sont en train de reproduire le même scénario des adultes. Si vous voulez, là, je présente quelque chose qui concerne une comparaison de la valeur du travail domestique des femmes avec des agrégats de l'économie. Donc pratiquement la contribution des femmes aux travaux domestiques, c'est 16% du PIB, et ce qui est équivalent et dépasse un petit peu la valeur ajoutée des activités de l'industrie de transformation au Maroc. C'est pour vous dire l'importance du travail domestique des femmes. Je vous ai parlé d'une utilisation inédite des données de constater des ménages dans le Maroc. Effectivement, au Maroc, on est en train de produire ou de mettre en place une étude qui va évaluer les politiques publiques qui visent à l'autonomisation des femmes et à réduire les écarts entre les hommes et les femmes, spécialement dans le domaine de la prise en charge et des soins non marchands. Ce travail-là va se baser premièrement sur la production d'une matrice comptabilité sociale qui va intégrer les données de compte satellite des ménages et avec des données qui sont genrées. Et cette matrice-là, elle va servir pour faire des simulations des politiques publiques en matière de libéralisation, libérer un petit peu les femmes pour intégrer le marché du travail, comment les pouvoirs publics peuvent mettre en place des politiques qui concernent pratiquement la création peut-être d'écoles de proximité pour les femmes, peut-être des services de garderie d'enfants qui soient gratuits ou subventionnés. Peut-être est-ce que les investissements publics dans certains secteurs, et spécialement dans l'infrastructure, peut libérer un petit peu les femmes, c'est-à-dire si on arrive à mettre en place des programmes de production de routes, peut-être d'amélioration de l'assainissement et de l'accès à l'eau, ça va libérer un petit peu les femmes et ça va leur permettre d'intégrer le marché du travail. Et en fin de compte, tous ces choix-là, on peut, à partir de ce modèle, on peut voir l'impact, si vous voulez, sur le bien-être et sur toute l'activité économique et sur les distorsions possibles sur le marché du travail. Je parlerai très très vite d'un ensemble de challenges. À vrai dire, lorsqu'on était en train de produire ce compte satellite, c'était la première expérience. Donc, même si on a vu un ensemble de méthodologies d'un ensemble de pays, donc, mais on avait des défis qui concernent l'utilisation. Déjà, on a utilisé des nomenclatures qui sont différentes. On a utilisé une nomenclature de l'enquête emploi de temps marocaine spécifique qui effectivement, elle est basée sur les nomenclatures internationales, mais des fois, il y a ce problème-là de correspondance, donc ce qui ne permet pas pour nous de faire les comparaisons à un niveau très détaillé de la nomenclature de notre compte. Également, ce qu'on a souligné, c'est que tout ce qui concerne les travaux ou les activités secondaires ou simultanées ne sont pas prises en considération dans la valorisation du travail domestique. Déjà parce qu'on avait un problème, comment valoriser ce travail, quel substitut à utiliser, c'est ça le grand problème. Et également, on a vu que dans la majorité des pays, c'est spécialement l'activité principale qui est valorisée. Une autre chose, c'est qu'on souffre de ce temps qui s'écoule entre deux enquêtes de l'emploi de temps. Au Maroc, la première enquête emploi de temps était en 1997 et elle a concerné que les femmes. En 2012, on avait une enquête qui concerne et les femmes, et les hommes et les enfants, et la prochaine enquête sera en 2025. Et ça n'empêche que lors des enquêtes spécifiques Covid, on a fait un exercice sur l'impact du Covid sur l'utilisation du temps pour les femmes et pour les hommes. Et à la fin, j'ai un élément très très technique qui concerne l'évaluation de la consommation de capital fixe des ménages, et c'est un truc très très technique. Merci.
Thank you very much, Yatou. And thank you very much for put my friend on test and remember these days at school learning French. I have I showed that rise when I saw your slides. And we can talk from different countries, from different regions. Maybe we can use different methodologies. But when I saw a couple of your figures, the global trends are amazingly the same. And you put one of them showing which things women do in childcare and which men. And I can say that with maybe little differences between the numbers, the trend in Latin America and the most of the countries that have this information is absolutely the same. And we in Uruguay used to say, with my mom, I eat and I take bath, and with my dad, go to the park. Because the men take the children to school, play maybe football, half an hour in one special afternoon, but a time to be fitted, a time to take bath, a time to do homeworks is the women that is there to the ordinary and quotidian tasks. So thank you, Yatu. So if you are okay, maybe we can take 2 or 3 comments or questions for the audience and then give the floor for the answer and close remarks, final comment for our panelists. So I need sunglasses also, but I am not seeing any hand rise. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Adriana Lopeza from Mexico.
Thanks. This is a question for Patricia. Patricia, you mentioned the intersection between the healthcare and the time use statistics for care and the problems to value the paid care. Do you have any insights on how to modify the use of health statistics to identify the care, but in the healthcare statistics, and how to identify or how to divide the populations like these long-term children, these people with disabilities or aging population? Do you have any insights on that? I mean, your presentation was more on the other, but I really like the slide where you intersect both of them.
Do you want to answer now or maybe collect a few more? Or just wait? Maybe collect a few more. I think someone here. Okay. Yes, please. Working.
Thank you very much. Je vais m'exprimer en français. Voilà. Je me nomme Kofima Kwaku. Je suis l'économiste statisticien principal sur les questions du genre à la Banque africaine de développement et je suis le coordonnateur régional de l'indice d'égalité du genre en Afrique. Je voudrais dans un premier temps remercier les organisateurs pour ce forum mondial et d'avoir invité également la Banque africaine de développement de prendre part à cette importante réunion. Et j'avoue que depuis ce matin, je suis impressionné par la qualité des interventions et aussi par le contenu des échanges et notamment des panélistes. J'aimerais me focaliser un tout petit peu justement sur la prise en compte des comptes satellites des ménages de production. Et les différentes interventions, notamment de la Colombie et du Maroc, sont assez parlantes. Je me souviens que la Colombie a estimé environ à 19% la part du PIB générée, la contribution donc des travaux domestiques, des travaux soins domestiques des ménages. Si cela était pris en compte, autour de 19%, de même le Maroc plus ou moins aussi, 18% pour la Colombie, 19% pour le Maroc. Et le Maroc a évoqué un problème lié à la nomenclature. Je ne sais pas si au niveau de la Colombie, un même problème a surgi au niveau de la nomenclature pour bien calibrer justement le compte satellite de production des bénages. J'aimerais donc un éclaircissement à ce niveau. Merci.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. Go ahead. I think now it's working. No. No. I think we can hear you, but I think it's not taking for the record. So I don't know if someone can.
My apologies for that. Thank you very much. My question is to Patricia. My apologies if I missed this when you spoke. You shared very intriguing numbers about the unpaid work accounting for between $500 and $800 billion, which translates to either 25% or 37% of Canada's GDP. I'm just curious, without going into too much detail, how were these calculated and how would we be able to calculate these for other countries that we come from? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Patricia, do you want to start?
Okay, so to answer Mexico's question, one of the things that, as we've mentioned, would be really helpful is have occupation code that are broader than what they are right now. That would greatly help in dividing. So that's one of the reasons our aim is to do a specific survey on paid workers, healthcare paid workers. So the selection would already be through census or LFS, selecting those people and then ask questions directly to them to distinguish what exactly they're doing. This is the biggest data gap that we've seen so far. Unfortunately, as you know, for many years, time use and labor statistics were not really good friends. We're trying to be better friends now, but the limitations of both surveys are there and will remain. So I think there are discussion in looking into this, in broadening the occupational code, and that will greatly help. If this is being seen by both the economic and the social stats, I guess we'll achieve something, but this is all that we've seen so far. And to answer your GDP, we've used the output methodology to calculate the GDP. The satellite account. So it's the number of hours spent and multiplied by the wages, and that's the reason why it varies between 500 to 800, depending if it was men or women doing the work.
Okay, thank you. I think the next question were to you, Yato.
Thank you, Lucia. Pour la question sur les nomenclatures, à vrai dire, lorsque j'ai parlé de ce problème de nomenclature, ça concerne spécialement un niveau très détaillé de la nomenclature. Parce que la mise en place d'un compte satellite, il requiert de valoriser tous les types d'activités qui répondent aux critères de la tierce personne et qu'elle soit une activité productive. Donc, des fois, lorsqu'on a du mal à trouver un substitut au niveau national, on veut voir ce qui est fait ailleurs. Et dans ce cas-là, on avait des fois du mal à faire ce lien ou cette correspondance entre la nomenclature nationale et celle utilisée au niveau international. Mais ce qui est une bonne nouvelle au Maroc, c'est que la prochaine enquête sur l'emploi de temps sera basée sur la nomenclature internationale. Donc on n'aura pas ce problème de différence de nomenclature et de classification. Merci.
Thank you very much. So if there are no more questions or yes?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yeah, my name is Jag. I am from SADC Statistics. My question is addressed to Morocco. I'll try to do it in French. You prefer French? Even English? Ok, j'essaierai en français. J'ai écouté attentivement votre présentation. Je suis à les satellite account, les déménages. Je voudrais savoir, mon première question, la fréquence de votre compilation de Household Satellite Account. Et puis, vous faisiez référence le Social Accounting Matrix, CGE modèle. Là, je voudrais savoir les tableaux ressources emploi. Normalement, on a besoin de tableaux de ressources emploi et des tableaux entrée-sortie pour compiler le SAM et les CGE. Ça aussi, je voudrais savoir si vous le faisiez annuellement ou vous le faisiez qu'une fois chaque 5 ans, dès que vous avez une enquête recensement des activités économiques. Et puis, ma troisième question est, le compte satellite des ménages, quand vous mentionnez les catégories des dépenses, je voudrais savoir si on regarde, vous mentionnez, même la présentation du Mexique, du Colombie plutôt, mentionne la contribution de unpaid care dans l'économie. Dans quel secteur, ISIC, which ISIC sector, on peut voir les household satellite accounts. Si je veux regarder le PIB par production, où est-ce que je vois 17% quand vous publiez vos chiffres? J'espère que je suis clair dans mes questions. Merci.
Merci pour votre question, vos questions. Donc, pour la première question qui concerne la fréquence de production du compte satellite des ménages, comme je l'ai dit, c'est la première expérience au Maroc. Donc, on l'a produit qu'une seule fois, en 2014. Malheureusement, ça date un petit peu. Mais les prévisions, c'est d'en produire chaque année qu'on a une enquête sur l'emploi de temps. Parce que la principale source d'information qui sera utilisée ou qui est utilisée pour le compte satellite des ménages, c'est l'enquête emploi de temps. La prochaine, ça serait en 2025, comme je l'ai dit, mais ça serait une occasion d'améliorer un petit peu notre méthode et de faire ces comparaisons pour voir comment le comportement des ménages et des femmes et des hommes a changé quant à leur implication dans le travail domestique non rémunéré. Ça, d'une part. Donc, pour le TRE, ça concerne les tables ressources emploi, ça concerne, je crois, vous voulez dire le TRE des comptes nationaux, c'est-à-dire le TRE sans le compte satellite des ménages. Ça, on le produit annuellement, on n'a pas de problème. Mais ça n'empêche qu'il est basé sur les données des années de base des comptes nationaux. Ça, je suis en train de répondre à une question très technique, mais il faut que je vous réponde. Pour le compte satellite, pour les matrices comptabilité sociale dans lesquelles on va introduire les données sur les comptes satellites des ménages, ce qu'on va faire, comme je l'ai dit, lorsqu'on a parlé de la valorisation des services domestiques, je vous ai parlé de la valorisation de la production d'une part. C'est nécessaire pour une matrice comptabilité sociale que la production y figure. Il faut également que la valeur ajoutée y figure et également les emplois de cette production. Donc, quand c'est une production qu'on a déjà valorisée, les valeurs ajoutées également et sont valorisées dans le compte satellite des ménages. L'output de la production non marchande des ménages est là pratiquement un seul emploi. C'est une consommation finale des ménages qui vont la consommer. Donc pratiquement, on a tous les éléments pour introduire les données du compte satellite des ménages dans une matrice comptabilité sociale qu'on va utiliser pour les travaux de modélisation. Il y avait une autre question, j'ai oublié. Dans quel secteur la relation, on l'a pas fait direct, mais comme vous allez voir, on a parlé principalement des services de préparation de repas. Ça veut dire ça va vers les secteurs de restauration. Vous avez l'entretien de logement, c'est pratiquement les services autres services des ménages. Et je vous dis que l'exercice, on ne l'a pas encore fait. Donc, c'est un projet. On est en train de travailler avec les collègues d'une autre direction. Et M. Zakaria, qui est chargé de ce sujet, il est là avec nous. Et avec l'appui technique de l'ONU Femmes Maroc, qu'on va produire ces travaux de modélisation et d'évaluation de politique publique. Merci.
Merci. The work on the satellite account in a presentation, it's very rational and we have a lot of figures, but when you are in the lab, when you are in the kitchen of the satellite account, you have so many different assumptions and decisions that you have to make, seeing the matrix of the wages, seeing exactly how you not combine but compare one task in the unpaid side with the paid side, and if you have representativity or no for this wage. It's amazing how homemade or craft made could be this kind of process than then you put in this figure. But there's a lot of work, a lot of assumptions, and a lot of assumptions in the positive sense that the economy have to take, and so many tools, so many inputs you need to this kind of results. Just a minute, and then I will give the floor 1 minute to each panelist, knowing that ILO leave a video to us and maybe can then share with you on the website or in a way that the organization decide. Yes, Chad.
Yeah. Thank you, Lucia. And thank you to all the speakers for their excellent presentations. Jess Encarnacion from UN Women. Basically, my question is for Colombia. I think if I heard it correctly, you're the second country who has done national transfer accounts. So I'm just wondering, the experience of Colombia transitioning from CESA to NTA and also to NTTA, how difficult or manageable was the process, considering that you are just the second country at the time who has produced the accounts? And likewise, just a short comment on what you have shared, Lucia, related to the experience of Colombia. It is such an inspiring story to hear that, the Aguascalientes meeting translated to at least a legislation passed in Colombia to further the efforts on data. I hope this is also one of the stories, probably in previous global forum or probably in the current. So it's something that I think worthwhile to know whether has happened in the past, and something that we could have more deliberate engagement with policymakers, with politicians, with key influencers and messengers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. And Maria, to you.
Okay, so just in preparation to the technicians, the chair has given the go-ahead to play the video at the end, correct? So no time? Okay, but later, okay. So just to end with You know, we have said all that we've said because we have data, and we've seen how investing in the care economy leads to generation in employment, higher employment to population ratio, reduces gender gaps. So at the basis of all this is data, right? And if we are not measuring properly, then we will not be able to say all of this. So especially on the continent whereby there is this drive, this move to improve care-related policies, social protection coverage, we see a lot of data gaps still. So we still need to put a lot of money into actually compiling the data to be able to say something about the labor force in general, more specifically about the care economy. And also while we are compiling our data to ensure that we are also using the set standards and also always to ask for support when it is required.
I'll be addressing maybe more practical day-to-day work. As I mentioned, in order to have more disaggregated data, we need our respondents. Unfortunately, people don't know what we're doing. And we're always challenged by having, I just conducted time use survey, it's finished, I had that space to try to make understand someone that doesn't know anything, what it's all about, and what's in it for them. You have the challenge of contacting the youth, the families, the young men, the older people, the caregivers. So what do you put to attract them? So this is one thing. I think that's where policy can help us in telling more about what we do, why we do it, and why is it important, and what will be the outcome for people. So the care economy we're all talking about, I think it will relate to everybody at some point. One thing that we're also missing from all the data points is the sandwich generation. So I'm part of it now. So having children, but now caring also for parents. This is something that we need to look at, that we're missing. And on the other hand, there's tons of data available. Getting access to those data is a challenge. Making sure that it's all compatible is another challenge. So we need to stop working in silos. We've been working in silos inside of our own agency. That needs to stop. We need to globally talk, and I think that's what we're starting. We just have to let people know about it.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you, Lucia. Pour moi, ce que je peux dire, c'est que la production d'un compte satellite des ménages, c'est un exercice vraiment très, très difficile. Ça nous a pris au moins 2 ans à voir les méthodologies, à voir, comme l'a dit Lucia, toutes les informations qui sont disponibles et qu'on peut utiliser, à savoir les enquêtes sur l'emploi du temps, les enquêtes sur le secteur informel, les enquêtes sur la population active, la LFS, des données qui sont des données administratives. Donc, on avait toute une batterie de données à utiliser, mais on avait également des hypothèses à mettre en œuvre. Donc, c'était nécessaire, comme c'est fait dans toutes les institutions statistiques. Mais, comme l'a dit Patricia, c'est que lorsqu'on fait un travail, il n'a de valeur que si il est utilisé. L'utilisation, c'est vrai, au sein de notre institution statistique, on l'utilise également, on va l'utiliser comme je l'ai dit, dans un projet ou d'un exercice d'évaluation de politique publique. Mais ça n'empêche que l'utilisation par les décideurs à l'extérieur du HCP, qui est notre institution de statistique, va donner plus de valeur et va vraiment informer la prise de décision au niveau national. Merci. Je veux juste ajouter une chose, c'est que j'ai beaucoup appris et on va peut-être expérimenter cet exercice des comptes de transfert comme l'a été fait par la Colombie. Merci, c'est un plaisir.
Okay, first answer the question, or yeah. Okay, well, maybe the most difficult part to make NTA was the lack of initiative, because we always have the information to do that. So the United Nations Statistics Division and Population Division made the manual in 2013, based on works with Professor Ronald Lee and Andrew Mason. So maybe it was the difficult or maybe the challenge. Even we was need a law for start the medication care. So in some countries like Colombia, we need some laws to obligate, to mandatory for do some measurements. So maybe is the key for make this, and we hope that the transition between NTA and NTA measurement we can do with exit. No, sorry. we can do with success, and maybe the key project is we continue with the time use survey is very essential for NTTA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. For the time that we are finishing the panel, I won't wrap up, but I interfere all the time, putting the vision and trying to summarize your interventions. So I think all that I have to say, thank you very much to the excellent panelists and the audience for the questions and comments, and I think we can continue in the corridors with these interesting chats. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is quite interesting, colleagues. I hope I'm learning. I hope we are learning. I'm looking at my colleague Joe. I think we need to have some discussion. It's interesting that the household satellite account, and also looking at what my colleague from Morocco and also my colleague from Colombia, they're doing. But colleagues, thank you so much. Let's give them the last round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much, colleagues. Okay. Colleagues, we are going to break for a tea break. We'll be back at 15:30, 3:30. Thank you.
One, 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 one. One, 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 one. One, 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 one. 1111. One two one two one two. One one. Am I up? One 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 one. Sorry? One, two, one, two, one, two.
One, two, 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 two. Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, two, two, two. It is nothing. One, two, two. One, two, 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 two. Orange, ne? Mara naga kiswahili nix. Yeah. One, two, two. Hi, 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 hi. One, two, one, two, one, two. One, two, one, two, one, two.
1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1. So I heard it there.
Two two 1 2 2 2. Ay po mine. Yan gana rap. Yo 1 2. Itin yela pa pambi. Two two 1 2 2 testing. 2 testing 1 2. It's hot, ne? It's hot. Two two testing, yeah. Okay, it's there. Yeah. It is. Two testing 1 2. Check 1 2. Yes, that's good. 2. Two testing. Testing 2 2. Testing 2. Some nine.
Hi, we need to start. We need to start. Thank you so much, colleagues. I kindly request that we take our seats. Can we start? This is our last session, colleagues. So we're getting into, thank you. Thank you, thanks so much. We're getting into the section 2. This is the last segment of the program. So we're going to listen to presentations regarding the women's invisible work, measuring gender equality in time use and unpaid domestic and care work. Samantha will be leading and chairing this session. She leads the ILA work on the development of modular time use tool for labor force survey. So I think she's quite capable of taking us and also leading us in this session. Samantha, over to you.
Okay, thank you. So it's a real pleasure to be here today. Since we've been short on time for most of the sessions, I'm going to go straight into things. I've already been introduced, so I don't need to do that, just to say that I'm from the International Labour Organization, the ILO. We're going to have 4 presenters today. 3 of them are here with me, and our 4th is going to be joining by video link. And we're going to start with my colleague from UNSD. So we have Ileana Vaco-Trijo, and she's going to be presenting the UNSD's work. So I'll go directly to you, Ileana, if you're fine with that.
Thank you, Samantha. While I wait until the colleagues load the presentation, I just want to say that
It's good that we are in the last session of the day because most of the things that we wanted to highlight were already highlighted by the previous speakers, so it makes my presentation easier. So I always like to start with the relevance on time use statistics when before starting talking on methodology, but I think it was clear from the presenters in this morning why it's important to have time use statistics, quality time statistics, for example, to monitor gender equality. Also, we listened in the previous session the importance of this data to link with economic statistics, for example, via social matrices, satellite accounts, and also the NTTAs. It's also a measure for quality of life, work-life balance, general well-being. We listened in the morning the presentation from the World Health Organization on the importance of time use, for example, to measure health issues. So one key message, I'm not going to go into all the details of why it's important, but one key message is instead of looking for alternative ways of measure or alternative measures, why don't we focus a little bit more on strengthening our time use data as a way to change the way we measure prosperity and progress and a way to provide more innovative ways to evaluate public policies. So despite the fact that we acknowledge that these are very important, this is very important information for different public policies, national statistical offices are still facing several challenges. And this is reflected in the number of countries that are reporting information on the indicator 541 to the SDGs Global Database. This is an indicator on unpaid work. And only 92 countries report data, at least one data point to the global database, but only half of these countries are reporting more than one data point, meaning that most of the countries are doing these exercises as ad hoc measurements. So it's not only a matter of having one data point, but being able to monitor progress or lack of that. And as we heard from the previous presentation, Patricia was very clear when she said that the NSOs are facing different challenges. For example, the respondent burden, the coding complexity. We have to acknowledge that these surveys or time use surveys, which are the key tools for conducting time use data, are very complex and costly. And demand a lot of human resources and financial resources, but at the same time we are being pressured by the data users to improve data granularity. We have been hearing from previous speakers the need of going beyond averages and looking to different population groups and how to also improve the quality of this data to make sure that this is being used not only for policymakers, but also for the research community, and also to create impact in the society at large. So I'm going to share with you the work of the United Nations Expert Group on Innovative and Effective Ways to Collect time use statistics. This is the last time I'm going to say the big name. In the future, I'm going to say the EGTUS, is what we call it in short, that have been established since 2018 to respond to a call from the United Nations Statistical Commission to develop methodological guidelines on how to operationalize ICATUS and produce time use statistics using the latest technology. So how to modernize time use statistics and try to face the challenges that NSOs are having. So what are the key features of the revised UN guide on producing statistics on time use? And just as a reminder, we already had a guideline, a methodological guideline produced by the United Nations Statistics Division that was launched in 2005. So many things have happened since then. And one of the key features is that this guide document was developed by the participation of experts from national and international organizations, and is based on the common challenges and lessons learned from countries. So it's not only conceptual, it's really based on what the countries have been facing and how they have been adapting different strategies. And through examples, these guidelines will illustrate how to overcome the different challenges. The guide is aimed to national statistical offices, statisticians that are challenged with the task to conduct time use surveys. and provide technical recommendations to improve the collection of use of time use data in line with statistical standards, in particular for monitoring the SDGs. But also, it's meant to help a broader range of time use data users to develop an understanding of the opportunities, but also the challenges that the different methodological decisions and to ensure the production of high-quality time use statistics. Another key feature is that we are acknowledging that there is no one-size-fits-all, so we are providing a basket of options, meaning that the guidelines are not meant to be prescriptive, but rather cover different instruments and modes and different methodologies, highlighting the advantages and the limitations of each methodology, and also providing some guidance on how to overcome the limitations of the different methodologies. It's structured as 11 standalone chapters, so the readers could go to the chapter that interests them the most, but also the different chapters are linked, and each chapter will end with a quality checklist. This is very new because it's not only a matter of producing the data, but also ensuring that the data that is being produced is fit for purpose. And finally, in addition to the document, because emerging technologies, the different researchers are always coming with different recommendations, so this will be a live document that will be complemented with a time use hub that has references and related materials to complement the guide. So the expert group has been working since 2008. Already 5 documents were presented to the Statistical Commission, both in 2020 and in 2022. The first one was on policy relevance, and I think although it's easier to convey the message here in an audience that are very sensitive with the issue of the importance of time use, that is not what is happening in all the areas of policy making. So the group has talked a lot about how to make the case of the use of time use and elevate the use of time use statistics, and this is a piece that will be incorporated also in the guidelines, but you can find it already on the web. We also agree on some concepts of definitions at the beginning to start to the dialogues among the experts in the group, because we were having different ideas of what we are referring to, but also to promote coherence and comparability among countries, but also among different measurements in the same country. As I mentioned before, each chapter of the guidelines will include quality considerations, so the group has been working also on developing standards to be applied to time use surveys, and this is reflected in each chapter of the guidance document, but also as a standalone chapter in the new guidance note. The group has also been discussing a lot on how to modernize time use statistics, and this is also taking advantage of the modernization in the production of statistics in general. So this is not to create additional cost to the NSO, but rather using the existing technologies in the NSO to overcome some challenges. And this might have different meanings for different countries. In some countries, modernizing might mean moving from PAPI data collections to CAPI, when they are using CAPI instruments for other surveys in the NSO. For other countries, it's moving completely to online surveys, and we will hear probably from different presenters here, so I'm not going to get into the details. It's better if the countries talk a little bit about their experiences, challenges, and opportunities. And what I will consider the heart of the work of this group, that is the minimum harmonized instrument, which I will explain a little bit on my next slide. And the idea is to promote more frequent collections by providing countries with a light solution. So when we talk about minimums, it's not that we are promoting that countries that are already doing standalone big surveys with a periodicity that is acknowledged by the NSO need to minimize their standards, but rather this is meant for countries that are at a starting point, that have no experience on collecting time use data, or for countries that want more frequent collections. So these can be included as a module, for example, on other surveys. You don't have to wait for the next 10 years to collect collect a standalone survey, but rather have intermediate data collection points. What it consists of, this minimum harmonized instrument, is essential background characteristics, so a set of minimum individual and household data, and this relates a little bit with the discussions that we had this morning on how to further disaggregate the data. It's not the same presenting the information only disaggregated by sex and age, but rather we would like to know a little bit more about the household composition and also the characteristics of the individuals that are making the different tasks. We have also developed a set of questions capturing economic and labor characteristics of respondents, and this was a work led by the ILO. So this has a lot of advantages because this ensures also that the instrument is in alignment with the other surveys, for example, labor force surveys. So if a country wants to include this as a module of a labor force survey, it's easily, well, easily is probably not the word, but it provides more assistance to do so. And then, in addition to the background characteristics, it provides a list of 25 activities. I'll probably have them in my next slide. And just for you to have an idea, the complete classification on time use activities, it's called ICATUS, was adopted as a statistical standard in 2016, has 165 categories. So this is in fact, an agreement on 25 activities to make statistics comparable at an international level, I think is a lot of progress. So countries can decide to collect the data more disaggregated if they want more information on the activities, but at least at this level of disaggregation if we want to be comparable. And in particular, the activities that are in that square are those that need to be for the computation of indicator 541 for monitoring SDGs. The minimum list of activities can be applied in both formats, as a diary or as a set of stylized questions. Another tool that the new guidelines will have is a model questionnaire for countries to adapt, and this has built a lot on the experience of the Latin American and the Caribbean countries that are the countries that have more often used this methodology, but it's available for all countries if they decide to go for this methodology. So I have already told you what has been presented to the Commission in 2022, but what's new in addition to what I have already mentioned, and of course I cannot go into all the details, but I wanted to highlight at least these 5 elements. One is the recognition of the need to better measure supervisory care. I have a slide on this, so I'll skip to the next one. Also, the demand that countries have been presenting at the Statistical Commission, also in the conversation with experts of the group, of the need of a set of standard rules for codifying ICATUS, and also have a slide on that, so I'll say more about the third part, which is about talking about survey population. So this guide is looking also on and stressing the need of more disaggregation. And the guide will present, for example, the experiences of Canada and Mexico on how to collect data for indigenous population. We have also made the case of the importance of adapting instruments to measure time use on children, but I promise, Lauren, that I'm not touching that topic, so you can explain further what this entails. And we are also highlighting the importance of disseminating and communicating the information, so using also technologies for creating for engaging users, so there is not one-way communication, it's not only showing what the data can do for the population, but also understanding what are the users' needs, what are the respondents' complaints, and also creative ways to visualize the information. So I'm not reading all the definition of supervisory care. I just want to convey that the group has been thinking on an agreed definition on how to measure supervisory care, understanding that is a big portion of the care that the people do, and is usually not measured with traditional time use surveys, mainly because people tend to, with pervasive activities, people tend to see them as background or report the main activity that they were doing, because supervisory care is always done in parallel with another activity. We have agreed on two components of the concept. One is that the caregiver and the care receiver have to be in the same location, in close proximity. It doesn't have to be in the dwelling of the household, but it can be in any location where the caregiver and the care receiver are together. And it does not require the active involvement that implies the provision of care. So it's the fact of being on calls if the need arises of the care. So to give an example, if I have an elderly parent that needs constant supervision, I might be engaged in other activities, I might be working for payment, I can also be cooking or taking care of my kids, but I cannot leave the house because I need to be present in case my parents need me. Not only we have worked on a definition, but we are also providing some guidance on how to operationalize the definition. Probably, Samantha, if we have time, you can tell us a little bit more on this, because ILO has been piloting some of the methodology on how to operationalize the measurement of supervisory care, meaning how to put this into the surveys. And also, how are we going to use this information on indicators, and what are the processing rules for these indicators. Also good news that we have been very mindful of international standards, so this definition is in alignment with ICATUS, with the ILO resolutions on work, but also we are looking at the SNA. And Yatu mentioned in the previous presentation that she has been looking at the new developed guidance, that they are also touching a little bit on supervisory care, but we have to make sure that all the work that the time use experts have done are also reflected in the discussions that the national statisticians are having in regards of the revision of the SNA. And on the coding rules, don't get scared. This is just an example of some coding rules for challenging scenarios. In addition of the standard rules that the group developed for implementing ICATUS, it was recognized that there are many activities, in particular in certain contexts in countries, that are hard to code. And a typical example is fishing. If a person reports that they're fishing, we don't know, or at the National Statistical Office, if it was fishing for payment, or it was fishing as a hobby, or if the fishing was as a production for final use, of goods for final use. So the guidelines made an attempt to provide clear rules on how to use the background information and the contextual variables combined to assist on the coding. So, for example, if the background information mentioned that the person is a fisher person, then we don't need to look further, and we will classify this as an employment. So I'm not going into these details. Also, we have encountered that there are many situations in which people report the activities together, either because the activities are done in parallel or because they happen so fast that it's hard to separate one from the other. And also, sometimes there are activities like going to the park with my children. So it's for my leisure, it's for caring. So how to classify this type of activities to be able to be comparable in time with other measurements and across different countries. And there are other challenging scenarios that are mostly related with evolving nature of activities and the use of the technology. There was a lot of discussion on how to code, for example, the development of digital content, or the time that people, for example, assist to theater presentations that are online or funerals online. Is this classified under the use of mass media, or where should it be classified? and how to get the information to rightly classify this data. So what's next? I have told you that these guidelines are being produced and will be presented in the 55th session of the Statistical Commission in March 2024 with the time use data hub that I have already mentioned about it. We will continue at the United Nations Statistics Division to work together with countries to strengthen national capacities to apply these guidelines and promote the use of likeness technologies and lighter solutions to have more frequent, more granular, more quality data on time use. And we hope that also we get the opportunity to convey the message to decision makers. So this, I cannot remember who said this in the morning, but the final goal of the production, it has to be the use for public policies, and at the end, we hope that this information ends on more gender equality. I have to say also that this work has been possible thanks to the commitment of these experts, and I want to thank all of them for their generous contributions, but also because of the contribution of a project on a development account project, and we are looking for more partnerships to continue the research and to continue promoting the guidelines and to continue strengthening national capacity. So thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. Thank you, Ileana. And I know that we have some members of the UNEDTAS here in the room as well, so they're here to hear your thanks as well. I feel like that was such an excellent demonstration of the changing landscape of time use measurement and what that makes possible, combined with the commitment of national statisticians and our agency colleagues. We've seen a lot of developments, some of which can't be underestimated, the promoting coherence, promoting comparability, and really setting the stage, the foundation for these lighter modular approaches, which do mark quite an impressive departure from the traditional methods. So I'm going to pass now to our colleague from Senegal. So next we have Mr. Mamadou Ngalgou Kane. And Mamadou is the Director of Economic Statistics and National Accounts at the Agence Nationale de la Statistique et Démographie in Senegal. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Bonjour à tous, ou bonsoir. Je vais faire ma présentation en français, mais les diapositives seront en anglais. Okay, donc c'est un plaisir de vous présenter la première expérience de réalisation de l'enquête Time Use Survey au Sénégal, ainsi que les comptes satellites de production des ménages. Donc cet exercice a été réalisé entre 2021 et 2022. Donc notre présentation va être articulée autour de 5 points. Donc nous allons d'abord rappeler le contexte dans lequel ce travail a été effectué. Ensuite, nous allons parler de l'enquête Time Use Survey, donc les objectifs, rapidement la méthodologie. Donc on va voir quelques résultats de cette enquête, notamment en termes d'utilisation du temps par les ménages sénégalais. Après, on va voir un peu comment les résultats de cette enquête ont été mis en valeur pour un peu évaluer le travail domestique non rémunéré des ménages. Enfin, des conclusions et perspectives vont être dégagées. Donc, s'agissant du contexte, d'abord, rappeler que le Sénégal est en train de mettre en œuvre son plan de développement économique qu'on appelle le plan Sénégal émergent. Et ce plan met l'accent sur l'employabilité et également la promotion des emplois productifs, rémunérateurs et durables, surtout dans le secteur informel, donc au profit des jeunes et des femmes. Donc, dans ce contexte, la stratégie nationale de développement de la statistique qui est en train d'être mise en œuvre au niveau du Sénégal cherche à produire des indicateurs qui sont désagrégés, notamment selon le genre. Donc à cet effet, les enquêtes budget temps, donc Time Use Survey, constituent des éléments essentiels. C'est dans ce cadre que ONIFAM a appuyé le Sénégal pour réaliser un peu cette première édition. Okay. Donc l'objectif de l'enquête Time Use Survey, comme vous le savez, c'est d'identifier, de classifier et de quantifier les types d'activités que les Sénégalais font au quotidien. Donc ça permet un peu de recueillir des informations sur le temps sur l'utilisation du temps par les hommes et les femmes. Donc ça permet également d'évaluer surtout le travail non rémunéré. Donc quelle proportion du temps est consacrée au travail non rémunéré par les hommes et les femmes, et de renseigner l'indicateur 5.4.1 des ODD. Mais aussi, surtout, cette enquête peut être valorisée pour un peu mesurer la contribution du travail non rémunéré à l'économie. Donc, en termes de méthodologie, bon, c'est un peu des méthodologies un peu classiques dans les enquêtes ménages. Donc, des tirages à 2 degrés. Donc, on tire d'abord des zones de recensement. Et dans chaque zone de recensement, on tire un ensemble de ménages. Donc, ce tirage a été fait de telle sorte à avoir une représentativité au niveau régional, mais également entre le milieu rural et le milieu urbain. Donc, dans chaque ménage, donc, le questionnaire individuel s'est adressé aux personnes de 15 ans et plus. Et dans chaque ménage sélectionné, on a choisi deux hommes et 2 femmes. L'enquête a duré au total 4 mois. Donc, les questionnaires de l'enquête comprenaient un volet ménage et un volet individu. Donc, pour le volet ménage, ça permet surtout de voir les caractéristiques socio-démographiques des membres du ménage, les caractéristiques de l'habitat et les équipements et biens durables. Pour le questionnaire individu, on a recueilli des informations sur la santé, l'emploi de l'individu, mais également le focus a été mis maintenant sur comment les personnes interrogées utilisent leur temps. Donc les 24 heures de la journée, comment c'est utilisé. Donc et chaque occupation est classée selon la classification développée par les Nations Unies, dont on a parlé tout à l'heure, ICATUS. Donc, parlons maintenant des résultats obtenus à l'issue de cette enquête. Donc, d'abord, on va faire notre analyse en se référant un peu à la classification ICATUS, donc, qui distingue 3 types d'activités. Donc, les activités productives selon le système de comptabilité nationale, les activités productives mais qui ne sont pas dans le périmètre du système de comptabilité nationale, comme l'a rappelé tout à l'heure Yatou, donc c'est les activités qui peuvent être menées pour le compte de tiers. Ensuite, il y a les activités non productives. Donc, ce sont ces 3 types d'activités qui sont identifiés dans la classification ICATUS. Donc, les résultats vont être présentés selon ces classifications. D'abord, si on s'intéresse dans quelle mesure les hommes et les femmes participent aux différents types d'activités, il y a certaines activités comme les soins personnels et l'entretien, qui comprend notamment le fait de dormir, ça tout le monde le fait. Maintenant, si on regarde des activités comme l'emploi et activités connexes, on voit que 50% des hommes interrogés l'ont fait contre 31% des femmes. Pour les services domestiques non rémunérés pour les membres de famille, là on voit que presque 85% des femmes ont participé à ce type d'activité, contre un peu moins de 32% pour les hommes. Dans ce graphique, on a essayé de voir les 24 heures de temps que dure la journée, comment les hommes et les femmes les ont utilisés. Et donc pour les soins personnels et entretien, donc ça prend un peu plus de 10 heures pour les hommes et les femmes. Mais quand on en vient aux activités comme l'emploi, donc on voit que les hommes passent 4 heures de temps dans ces types type d'activité, alors que les femmes n'en consacrent que 1,6 heures. Par contre, si on vient aux services domestiques non rémunérés pour le ménage, donc les femmes consacrent 4 heures en moyenne, alors que les hommes consacrent 30 minutes en moyenne. Donc on voit un peu la différence en termes d'utilisation du temps dans la journée pour les hommes et les femmes. Si on regarde maintenant en termes de productivité, on voit que les Sénégalais passent en moyenne 4,1 heures pour faire des activités productives au sens du système de comptabilité nationale. Spécifiquement pour les hommes, ce temps est de 5,6 heures, alors que pour les femmes, c'est 2,6 heures. Par contre, si on regarde les activités productives qui ne sont pas dans le champ du système de comptabilité nationale, là, les femmes consacrent 4,3 heures à faire ce type d'activité, alors que les hommes consacrent 0,6 heures, à peu près donc 36 minutes dans la journée pour faire ce type d'activité. Donc vous voyez déjà avec ce graphique l'importance de pouvoir chercher à valoriser les activités productives qui ne sont pas dans le champ classique du système de comptabilité nationale. Donc c'est ce travail qu'on va chercher après à faire. Maintenant, si on regarde de façon spécifique les activités productives qui ne sont pas dans le champ du système de comptabilité, quand même est consacré à des travaux domestiques. Donc, pour les femmes, c'est 84%, presque 85% de leur temps est consacré à des travaux domestiques, contre 57,3% si on se limite aux activités productives hors SN. Maintenant, on va un peu voir comment ces données ont été mises en valeur, surtout par nos services de comptabilité nationale, pour un peu valoriser le travail non rémunéré qui est effectué par les femmes et les hommes au Sénégal. Donc l'approche qui a été utilisée au Sénégal, c'est ce qu'on appelle l'approche du coût du marché. Donc cette approche va se baser sur les données de l'enquête Time Use Survey, qui nous donne un peu le temps qui a été consacré aux activités non rémunérées. Maintenant, chaque type d'activité, on va essayer d'avoir un prix de référence pour valoriser ça. Par exemple, la garde des enfants, on va voir quel est le prix pour la garde des enfants en se référant à d'autres enquêtes qui ont capté ce prix-là pour des personnes qui sont rémunérées. Donc au Sénégal, on a notamment l'enquête nationale sur l'emploi au Sénégal qui se fait de façon trimestrielle, donc qui nous a permis de voir pour les activités menées au sein du ménage et qui ne sont pas rémunérées, leur équivalent qui est rémunéré, à quel taux elle est rémunérée. Donc connaissant ce taux et connaissant le volume horaire qui est consacré, donc ça nous permet de valoriser un peu ces différentes activités. Donc, à l'issue de ce travail, la valeur ajoutée globale des activités productives hors SCN a été évaluée à 4 502 millions de dollars US. Donc, dont l'essentiel, en fait, c'est lié aux travaux domestiques. Donc, 78%, c'est en fait lié aux travaux domestiques. Maintenant, si on regarde un peu la contribution des hommes et des femmes par rapport à ces services, donc on voit que pour les travaux domestiques, naturellement, comme les femmes passent plus de temps à faire ces travaux domestiques, donc en termes de valeur, d'apport économique également, les femmes dominent largement. De là, c'est la même chose pour l'assistance aux enfants également. Les femmes dominent largement, alors que les hommes dominent surtout au niveau des activités de transport liées aux activités. On voit nettement que la contribution des hommes est relativement faible comparée aux femmes. Donc de façon globale, la contribution des femmes à ces types d'activités est évaluée à 85%, 85,3% exactement. Donc ici, pour vous donner un peu une idée de la valeur de cette contribution par rapport à celle qui est prise en compte dans le champ du système de comptabilité nationale. Donc, on a présenté ici la contribution du secteur informel. Donc, vous savez que le secteur informel est considéré dans le secteur institutionnel des ménages. Il y a aussi ce qu'on appelle les ménages purs, donc les ménages qui occupent leur propre logement ou bien qui font des services domestiques, qui utilisent du personnel rémunéré. Donc, vous voyez un peu la valeur ajoutée pour le cas du Sénégal. Ça vous donne un peu une idée de l'importance des activités non rémunérées. Donc 4 502, par exemple, contre 10 900 pour le secteur informel. On sait que la taille du secteur informel est assez importante dans les économies de l'Afrique au sud du Sahara. Donc, en résumé, le travail qu'on a effectué, en résumé, ce travail a permis un peu d'évaluer la contribution des activités non rémunérées des ménages à 16,3% du PIB. 16,3%. Et dans ces 16,3%, les femmes contribuaient à hauteur de 85%. Et si on regarde en termes de type d'activité, c'est surtout les activités domestiques avec 78%. Donc voilà quelques résultats saillants qui sont issus de nos travaux. Donc en conclusion, il faut noter quand même que la réalisation de cette première expérience d'enquête budgétant, d'enquête Time Use Survey, a été quand même faite avec succès. Malgré quelques contraintes qu'on a rencontrées du point de vue pratique, donc des contraintes liées à la difficulté de bien maîtriser la classification des activités par les enquêteurs et même par les superviseurs. Le temps aussi, ça demande aussi un temps assez conséquent pour administrer le questionnaire à chaque individu. Chaque individu, on essaie de retracer les 24 heures, comment il les a passées. Donc ça prend assez de temps. Et puis aussi, il y a l'effet de mémoire, parce que l'enquête, on demandait l'individu sur un jour choisi parmi les 7 derniers jours. On l'interrogeait sur comment il a fait utiliser son temps. Et quand ça remonte de plus de 2 jours, ça pose des effets mémoire. Et puis il y a aussi le problème à bien maîtriser les activités secondaires. Finalement aussi la valorisation du travail non rémunéré, comme l'a dit la présentatrice du Maroc, constitue aussi un élément de plaidoyer assez important pour une meilleure appréciation de la contribution des femmes au bien-être de la société. Donc, en perspective, nous allons chercher à réaliser des études thématiques approfondies sur la base de l'enquête UIS. Donc, les présentations, le panel de ce matin, avec surtout la professeure qui nous vient du Canada, il a montré comment ces types d'enquêtes-là peuvent être utilisés pour faire des études un peu plus poussées concernant un peu la situation des femmes. Donc, c'est dans cette optique qu'on va s'inscrire et également de réaliser les enquêtes budgétantes de façon assez régulière. Voilà un peu ce que je voulais présenter en résumé. Merci beaucoup.
Donc, merci beaucoup. I think for me that was just it speaks so much to the topic of to this session in terms of the invisibility of women's work and how we overcome that. Thank you very much. I think as well, just on the last slide, I think maybe this will come up more in the questions for people who aren't familiar with time use research, but you spoke there just about some of the challenges around coding, but also around some of the field operational things that this quite specialized survey can throw up. So I think good if we can expand on those in the questions section. I just want to keep us to time. So now we're going to the video screen. So I'll just ask colleagues to please bring up our colleague from the National Statistical Office of Mongolia. The magic of technology. Okay. Well, I see us. So, okay, something's happening. Great to hear from you that you've got plans for future time use surveys after this first experience. Okay, terrific. So now we have Ms. Dulamjav Altan Garel, and I'll invite you again to tell me how to say your name. If you're ready to go, and I think you can hear me, I'm just going to pass to you now to talk about the experience of Mongolia. Thank you very much.
Hello. Can you hear me?
It's very faint. Could you try again?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone. Thank you for having us Mongolia in this important forum. And I wish to participate in person, but I'm also pleased to have this opportunity to join as a virtual speaker to introduce and sharing our experience of time use survey in Mongolia. And can you please show my presentation, please?
Can we have the slides, please?
Yeah, I can see my presentation.
We're just getting it up for you. Just bear with us 1 second.
Okay.
Colleagues, can we have the slides for Mongolia? Okay, we can see your slides now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can you move on, please? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Mostly, I'm gonna talking about the latest time use survey of Mongolia, which is conducted in 2019. And okay, I can see my. Okay, thank you. And on March 2000, the government of Mongolia, with the financial and technical support from the UNDP, launched the bold initiative to count unpaid and paid work by undertaking a time use survey. In total, 1,086 households were selected, and also aimed to determine gender equalities and inequalities in unpaid and paid work, and also to obtain data on employment in both the formal and informal sectors of the economy in order to compare with the official statistical data and make evaluation of them, and explore the possibility of using time use data to link to use introducing to producing other kinds of data. And then in 2040, the amendment to law on statistics required a national time use survey to be conducted every 4 years. Starting from 2007, surveys were conducted in that time, and 2011 and 2015, the survey improved over the years with the expansion of the reference period number of households covered, which are 3,200 households in 2007 and 2,000 households in 2011 and 2015 in order to use time and resources more effectively from the perspective of both a participant and the data producer for the time use 2019. NSO of Mongolia decided to use CAPI, which is a face-to-face interview using tablet for the first time for the household questionnaire, and also develop its first mobile application for the diary part. And the studies provides an overview of knowledge, experience, and the next survey of NS of Mongolia in that a new data collection solution and validation methods for using mixed method of data collection. And according to the law and statistics this year, NSO is conducting the 5th time use survey with the international methodology, covering about the 3,000 households using a mixed method of data collection. And the very first time, can you please wait me a minute?
I think there's
Yeah,
a delay,
you.
don't worry.
Okay, I'm not finished. Okay, thank you. Okay, and NSO developed its first CS Pro software for a CATI method, which is now using for a data collection. Okay, thank you. We are aiming to assess the implementation and the progress of the SDGs, considering the indicator 5.4.1, and to identify the lifestyle of Mongolian people, which is over 12 years and above, and study also its changed over the time. Furthermore, also we are aiming to monitor the implementation of the action plan of the government of Mongolia, which is increase women's representations in the decision making and provide equal opportunity for meaningful participation and leading role of women in all spheres of political and economic and social life. Okay, can you please? Okay, thank you. Okay, let me introduce a little bit about the latest time surveys that we conducted in 2019, and according to the one studies, and so successfully organized the 4th time survey with the international methodology, and Mosti's stage sampling method was used to select households, and the sample size was 4,000 households, which was said to be sufficiently representative to estimate population time use indicators at the national level, including urban, rural, and regional areas. And data collected quarterly, and the diary was kept by the members of the selected household aged 12 and over. Okay, in order to use the time and the resources more effectively from the perspective of both participant and data producer for the time use survey in 2019, NSO decided to use a mixed method of data collection. For example, computer assisted personal interviewing was used to collect household information, and the combination of paper questionnaires and smartphone applications was used to keep diaries. the following, there were three types of questionnaire were used in the survey. The household questionnaire and the diary included contextual information, location, and with whom. And additionally, we used the new model for children under 5, which refers to child illness related to air pollution and the parents, and how many hours and how much money is spent for caring their children. Okay, can you please move on? Thank you. In time use 2019, the initial data collection process steps were the first visit interviews used the CAPI for the household questionnaire, and the respondents were asked if they wanted to use a paper diary or mobile application for the diary, and then if the respondent choose to mobile application, and interviewer created an account and password for respondents with the CAPI system, and provided guidance on how to install the mobile application to their mobile phone. And interviewer also gave a guideline on how to fill out the diary using the application. And data collection monitoring process was like respondents first when respondents fill their diary whenever they could within the day, the interviewers could monitor and give the guidance to the respondent directly using the CAPI system. In the case that the respondent provided inaccurate or incomplete data, asked for advice on filling the diary, the interviewer provided the required information by notification. If the respondent did not provide any response, the interviewer reached out the respondent by calling. The data collection process was closed once interviewer checked the data collected, usually 2 or 3 days after the data was submitted by the respondent. Okay, mobile application survey was a good alternative to traditional data collection methods, given the rapid spreads of mobile devices. Mobile application surveys had their own advantages and also disadvantages. Offering participants to use of a mobile application survey was an alternative method to fill up the diary when they are available and reduce their respondent burden and created interest in participation in the survey. Respondents can fill a diary with the application when they're in the public transportation or when they're waiting someone or when they're at the restaurant, etc. And all data that is filled by the respondent is delivered to central server, allowing NSO staff to send out comments to their respondents once that is into it. The use of mobile application is saved time for the interviewer and the respondents, and interviewer didn't need to visit the household for data collection and the data checking monitoring. This directly saved the time, budget, and the human resources to conducting the survey. In terms of data dissemination, also saves time allocation, helped in producing timely data. It is also worth to mention that using mobile application survey was a benefit for environment, which means less paper usage. Furthermore, the mobile application made it easier to collect, especially coding activities and input data. Interviewers were able to check and monitor the data, communicate with their respondents by sending notifications, reaching out to them in case of complicated or inaccurate data. This contribute to the improvement of data quality. Both statisticians and IT staff gained experience and improved our knowledge and skills, of course, but also NSO of Mongolia faces some challenges, including long distance between population centers, nomadic livestock of a significant number of people, and address system that has not been standardized, and the low levels of trust of the respondents that will not be used for non-statistical purposes. Throughout the survey, we experienced it, and is to be considered for the upcoming mobile application service, such as mobile application was only applicable for respondents who have mobile phones, and some respondents, even when they had their phones, but they didn't have access to internet connection. But we could manage this by providing free internet data, which motivated the respondents and they increased their response rate in the end. Also, some respondents concerned about the confidentiality of uploading the application into their mobile phones, and the interviewers tended to use a traditional method. And application can be improved by registering respondents, grouping them, and offering survey incentives. And more broadly, they can also use to build the statistical literacy and awareness, providing the latest statistical information and explaining statistics. Considering these issues, conducting the survey using one method was not convenient. This is one of the reasons why we decided to mix mode survey methods to collect the data efficiently to produce accurate and timely data. With this experience with this mobile application survey, NSO is planning to use this method in other easy surveys, not like lengthy complex surveys such as establishment surveys may not suitable for application surveys. Okay, okay. As a result of Time News Survey 2019, sample size was 4,000, and the response rate was 90.3%, and almost 1 in 2 of respondents was men. And about the completed diary, there were about 6,000 members of households aged 12 years and above were completed diary, and from 6,110 was the paper diary, and the other 220 person just completed by through the smartphone application. The response rate was 64.3%. And Yeah, and about the can you please?
I think because you're out of time, I think that the slides have been
okay.
taken
Sorry.
down. So if you can just wrap up,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Did you want to just wrap up or just 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. I think that everyone will be very interested and have lots of questions for Mongalia. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm going to move directly to our next and final speaker, Ms. Lauren Pandolfelli, statistics specialist at UNICEF, and Lauren's going to be talking about the measurement of time use for children.
Thank you, Chair and organizers, for the opportunity to present UNICEF's methodological work to develop a survey module on children's time use. As we wait for the slides to load, I realize I have the privilege of being last at the end of a long day, so I will try and waiting in between your socializing event. That's it a little bit, so I will try my best to keep you all awake. So we've already heard very powerfully from the previous presenters today about the importance of time use data, but allow me to zoom in on the importance for children. So I like to begin every presentation on children's time use with this quote, even though it's 20 years old, because I think it really captures the heart of why UNICEF has developed a children's time use module. In short, before we can evaluate how well children are doing and why some are doing better than others, it is important to understand what they are doing, with whom, and in which social contexts and institutions. More specifically, we have a limited understanding of how the ways children spend their time affect their well-being and shape their opportunities. We do know from existing data collections, however, some of which have been referenced throughout the day, that gender disparities in unpaid work, leisure, as well as schooling begin in childhood. So if we want to address women's disproportionate unpaid work burdens, which of course we all do, then we must begin addressing these in childhood. To do so, we need routinely collected data on children's time use, yet until now there have been no standard data collection tools to measure children's time use. So given this, UNICEF set out to develop a module for measuring children's time use in mixed, the UNICEF-supported multiple indicator cluster survey, which many of you are familiar with. Integrating a time use survey into an existing multi-purpose household survey is not without its challenges, as I'll touch upon shortly, but we see real value in doing so. This is because MIX collects a wealth of information to analyze the determinants of children's time use, including individual factors such as age, sex, disability status, and household factors such as rural location, wealth, that can help us understand, with the inclusion of a time use module, the types of activities that children engage in, such as sleeping, playing, schooling, and the time they spend on these. We can then correlate children's time use with the well-being outcomes MIX collects data on, including gender equality, multidimensional poverty, quality of life, and mental health. With this data, it's our hope that countries can design more effective policy and programming for children. But as I noted, integrating a time use module into MIX is not without its challenges. I'm not going to address all of these right now, but one I would like to highlight is the issue of seasonality bias. Ideally, in a perfect world, time use data would be collected at multiple times throughout the year to ensure coverage across seasons, but this is not realistic for the MIX survey program or for probably several survey programs. And this can have implications for estimates of children's time use, in particular of time children spend on schooling and related activities. An additional challenge I will spend a little bit of time on is that specific to collecting data on children's time use is the issue of self versus proxy reporting, or whom to interview. Can and should the data be self-reported by the child, as we know is the gold standard with the time use data collection for adults, or should the information be collected by proxy, typically by the primary caregiver? And there are really three issues at play here when deciding what to do. The first is social desirability bias. Are caregivers more likely to underreport activities that may be considered undesirable, such as children spending too much time on unpaid work activities, or overreport desirable activities, such as related to children's schooling? There's actually some evidence to suggest that mothers underreport girls' unpaid domestic work, but other evidence suggests this bias decreases with the age of the girl, as it's considered more acceptable for older girls to spend more time on domestic work. The second issue essentially is the ability of the caregiver to accurately report the time use of the child. Does the caregiver know what the child is doing and for how long? And when I think about my own children and what they might do during the day, I don't know how comfortable I would feel reporting on their complete set of activities. And lastly, at what age can we expect children to cognitively be able to report their own time use? Eurostat has suggested that children as young as 8 to 10 can report their own time use, but to what extent does this hold true in the low and middle income countries where MIX is implemented, where there may be limited use of timepieces in remote and low literacy areas? So to begin to resolve these issues, we field tested several components that you see listed here, including the use of stylized questions and time diaries, this issue of self versus proxy reporting, as well as the adequacy of the time use categories adapted from ICATUS for children, and the additional respondent burden of integrating a time use module into MIX. And the guiding criteria that informed our decisions during the field test and finalization of the model included the relevance of the information we were collecting across a diversity of settings, as well as ensuring critically that we can collect quality data without adversely affecting overall mixed data quality. So in the interest of time, I won't go into detail about the design of the field test we conducted, but do want to acknowledge that we partnered with the national statistical offices in Malawi, Belize, and most recently last year with Zimbabwe, and we really owe them a great deal of gratitude for so ably implementing the field test for us. So what did we learn? In general, Patricia noticed the respondents to the surveys she talked about were not keen on answering them. I have to say that. The respondents were quite pleased to talk about their day or their children's day. And we were discussing why that might be, and it's a sort of a different set of, a different module for MIX. MIX asks a series of stylized questions, some of which are quite detailed, and cognitively burdensome perhaps, and we found that respondents really enjoyed talking about their day or the day of their child. We did observe some respondent fatigue though, owing to the retrieval and aggregation of information when we tested stylized questions in which respondents had to report how much time was spent in the past week or 24 hours doing certain activities. The diary did perform better, but was still quite a bit of probing by the enumerators was required to avoid gaps in the accounting of activities, especially for activities respondents considered non-consequential, such as how much time the child spent on personal hygiene. And we observed some interesting comments by the respondents, you know, why do you want to know how much time my child spent brushing their teeth or showering or doing those types of things? But with probing, we were able to elicit that information. And as we expected, there was some difficulty, particularly in rural areas of Malawi, collecting information in low literacy settings. Respondents tended to provide non-numerical responses, such as a bit, not long, which that required time estimation from the enumerator after extensive probing. We also learned, perhaps not surprisingly, that in terms of child versus proxy reporting, caregivers were largely unable to report the activities and time spent on them that their children engaged in when they were away from home. Interestingly, even when the child was home, the caregiver found it harder than the children themselves to provide accurate information on how long they spent on activities, which was demonstrated by the data from Zimbabwe, where we interviewed both adolescents themselves and their caregivers about the adolescents' time use. A critical takeaway from the field test concerned the importance of enumerator training for collecting quality data. Our colleague from Senegal talked about some of the challenges of coding, and while we know that training is important for all data collections, The interviewing techniques required for a time diary differ from the typical mixed survey administration, as the diary is really a facilitated conversation rather than a scripted set of questions. And it's really critical to allocate enough time for training on the time diary, and ideally we feel that CAPI should be used to help minimize entry and estimation errors. So finally, developing a time diary meaningful for children requires the regrouping of some introduced to main activities, such as those concerned with play and socializing, and the use of digital technologies, which is becoming increasingly important in the lives of children, to prioritize children's activities and to align with UNICEF programming. These adaptations were well understood by respondents, but of course small field test samples did not capture low prevalence activities. So I will conclude by noting that the Children's Time Use module has been finalized and is now available as a complementary module in Mix 7, the round of Mix, which is launching this year. And by complementary, I mean that countries can elect to add the module to the base Mix questionnaires and will receive a tool package, including administration guidelines, interviewers' instructions, protocols, and ethical considerations for interviewing children. For now, the module will be administered to children 10 to 17, with 15 to 17-year-olds self-reporting their time use, and caregivers reporting the time use of children 10 to 14. In the future, we will continue to undertake methodological work to lower direct reporting for children 10 to 14, so the experiences of Mongolia and others who have already done so will be quite useful to us. And then finally, to also collect time use data for children under age 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. So I think fascinating, and I can really relate to some of the challenges that you've had in adapting tools for modular applications. I'm grateful that I didn't also have to think about how to adapt them for children, so a further challenge. I'm going to open the floor up. We started a little late. I don't know if we can run a few minutes late, but I'll just collect a round of questions, and then the speakers can respond. And please remember our colleague in Mongolia as well. I wanted, can we bring our colleague from Mongolia back on the screen, please? Thanks. So questions. Is that Patricia? Great. And can I ask if you'll just, can you introduce themselves just briefly? Okay, so we've got Patricia and then Isabella. Is that okay? So I have Patricia first, then Isabella, and then I'll collect a few. Oh, sorry, everyone's been saying it and it's true. It's very difficult to see. AFDD. DD, thank you. Okay, all right, and I see I've got Morocco as well. Well, let's just start at the back as we plan. So Patricia, if you want to go first.
Yes, thank you, and thank you very much, everybody, for the presentation. One highlight that I'm seeing is that CAPI, unless we want to get rid of it, seems to be the best method so far to have higher response rate and engagement with respondents. And my problem with reaching out to or Canada's problem in reaching out to respondents is that we no longer have that, and their first contact is now a letter. And they're asked to go online to complete a survey. So this is an additional challenge. But I have questions, I think, for everybody, except for you, Eliana. Sorry. I know you're working a little bit too much. Pour le Sénégal, j'ai manqué votre collègue, mais je pense que c'est CAPI. Puis ensuite, vous avez mentionné que les répondants avaient le choix de journée. Est-ce que c'est ça ou vous fournissiez une journée dans les 7 jours? Et si c'est le cas, si les répondants avaient le choix de sélectionner un jour, est-ce que vous avez vu un billet dans les journées sélectionnées? For Mongolia, it's you've said that you had, was the collection of the diary on multiple respondents, or multiple days, because you do have double of the diaries of the household that collected. And Karen, the setting is, I'm just wondering, right now, most of it is for lower income countries. Would you see this being collected into developed countries? And could we use a similar approach? Thank you.
Thanks. So I'll just stay on this side of the room and then I'll go around to that side. So if we can have Mongolia next. Did you have a question? Yeah. Can we have? Yeah. Have you got a microphone? Okay, great.
Bonjour. J'ai une question à notre collègue. Désolée, je vais parler en français. J'ai une question à notre collègue de Mongolie. C'est juste par rapport à la collecte des données auprès des enfants. Je veux juste avoir quelques détails. Est-ce qu'il s'agit des enfants, est-ce qu'il s'agit d'un module intégré au questionnaire individuel pour les ménages ayant des enfants de moins de 5 ans, ou bien il est réalisé auprès d'un sous-échantillon des enfants? Donc, je veux un peu plus de détails sur ce point. Merci.
Okay, and the next question was AFDB, please.
Oui, merci. D'emblée, je voudrais remercier tous les intervenants. Et je commence avec la dernière intervenante qui a parlé de l'enquête budgétant dans le cadre du MIC 7 consacré aux enfants. Ma question va dans le même sens que celle qui vient d'être posée. Est-ce qu'il s'agit donc d'une enquête intégrée auprès des ménages ou une enquête consacrée uniquement aux enfants? Si c'est le cas, comment le lien donc s'établit avec l'enquête globale au niveau des ménages pour dégager les comptes satellites de production? Ça, c'est la première question, s'il vous plaît. La deuxième question au Sénégal, qui me semble très important, je pense que dans le système de comptabilité nationale, actuellement, l'accent est beaucoup mis sur les services marchands, les services ou activités marchands. Et il y a aussi un volet consacré aux services non marchands. Mais dans le cadre des enquêtes budget nous consacrons beaucoup plus aux activités non marchandes. Donc la question est de savoir, de donner quelques exemples d'activités non marchands qui sont pris en compte dans le cadre du système de comptabilité nationale et les activités non marchandes qui ne sont pas prises en compte dans le cadre du système de comptabilité nationale. Et enfin, quand nous voyons l'estimation qui est donnée en ce qui concerne justement les activités, le compte satellite de production par rapport au PIB, de façon globale, que ce soit l'exemple de la Colombie, du Sénégal ou du Maroc, c'est au-dessus de 15%. Alors les 15% par rapport au PIB, s'agit-il du PIB ajusté ou du PIB normal calculé dans le cas du SNN? Merci.
Okay, and just Isabella, your question?
Yes, it's actually for Lauren. You know, I would be very keen to know how much time that module will add to your mix, and also whether you've done any cost estimates, you know, in adding this child module.
Okay, so I think if the panelists can answer that round of questions, and then if people want to think about some more questions, we can maybe do a quick second round. Okay, but we've already got 4 questions. So, okay, I can't see who that is. So you can just ask your question and say who you are.
It's
Reggie. Hi, Reggie. Sorry about that.
Just a quick one. It's not directed at any specific person. You know, we're doing these time use surveys, and it's binary, no? It's male, female. But it's talking gender statistics. How valid is the information given the context of LGBTQI and what impact it has in terms of of how we look at it. I'm not sure whether it's something we could grapple with. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay. All right, so maybe if we begin with so Canada, Patricia's questions. So I think they were directed at everyone apart from Ileana. So did you want to go first, maybe, and answer the questions that...
Thank you very much. Pour le Sénégal, je pense qu'il y avait une question un peu sur le choix de la journée sur laquelle porte l'enquête. En fait, effectivement, l'enquête a été faite par CAPI, la méthode CAPI. Et en fait, la journée est choisie de façon aléatoire. C'est l'application qui choisit de façon aléatoire la journée. Donc, ce n'est pas à l'enquêté de choisir. Il y avait une autre question de la Banque africaine de développement par rapport aux activités non marchandes. Effectivement, les activités non marchandes, surtout les services non marchands, il y en a qui sont pris dans le champ du système de comptabilité nationale. C'est tout ce qui est, par exemple, les activités d'administration publique, les activités des ONG, du secteur associatif. Maintenant, pour les ménages, il n'y a que les services non marchands utilisant du personnel rémunéré. Les services non marchands, mais qui utilisent un personnel rémunéré, comme certains services domestiques, mais aussi le service de logement pour compte propre. Quand vous avez votre propre maison que vous occupez, également, il y a un loyer qu'on appelle loyer imputé qui est calculé. Il n'y a que ces deux-là pour les ménages. Maintenant, ici, l'intérêt de cet exercice, c'est d'aller au-delà, de voir tous les types de services que les ménages font, mais qui pouvaient être faits par quelqu'un d'autre, qui pouvaient être délégués faits par quelqu'un d'autre. Par exemple, quand un membre du ménage fait l'encadrement des enfants, donc les cours un peu de répétition, ça pouvait être fait par quelqu'un d'autre. Donc l'intérêt de cet exercice, c'est de pouvoir valoriser un peu ces types d'activités qui ne sont pas encore dans le champ du système de comptabilité nationale. L'autre dernière question, c'est un peu les pourcentages qu'on donne, le poids par rapport au PIB. Bon, en tout cas, pour le Sénégal, ce qui est donné, c'est par rapport au PIB normal, non élargi. Mais je pense que les autres, ils ont présenté, c'est la même chose. Ici, c'est par rapport au PIB qu'on publie. Merci.
Merci. And I think we could go to Mongolia now. So I think the question for you, Dula, was around the intra-household selection mechanism. So how many respondents within each household you were selecting? Was it multiple respondents per household? Are you there? Have we lost you? Okay, well, we can go to Lauren in between then. So Lauren, did you want to? Yeah?
Sure. Could we see the module being used in developed countries, I think was the question. Yes, certainly. The module Mix has developed is designed to be standardized across countries, but as with all mixed surveys, countries are encouraged to contextualize the modules to their needs. For the diary, I think this would mainly entail contextualizing the categories that we are asking in the diary approach, because some may or may not be more relevant. So as an example, in countries, we did an analysis of children's access to ICT-related skills. In some countries, we see that 90% of children are offline. So maybe in those countries, we don't need to estimate time spent using digital technologies, but in a country like Canada, I assume that would be of much more importance. So yes, the idea is that it could be used, and one other thing to consider is, you probably would want to adapt it into your survey's existing protocols if you're using CAPTI or something like that. I don't know that you would be going door to door, as we have to, of course, with mixed surveys. On the cost of estimating or adding the children's module, so on average, the module took about 20 minutes to implement. I mean, this is data based on 3 different field tests. Slightly lower amount of time when it was self-reported by the adolescent child themselves. In terms of cost, now that Mix is employing a base and complementary approach, so we have a base questionnaire, and then countries are encouraged to add these complementary modules, including children's time use at their discretion. We've developed a formula to help countries estimate estimate the cost of including these modules, including time use. I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but I think the cost would be largely driven by perhaps, because we're integrating with existing protocols, largely driven by if there's additional time spent in the EA. And then quickly on how relevant the data is, because we're not capturing LGBTQ. UNICEF very much recognizes the importance of capturing non-binary and gender-diverse children. We're beginning to stick our toe into that area and having discussions with colleagues building off of work that's already been done by others, such as the ECE, etc. We're not there yet with NICS, both in terms of sample sizes, we wouldn't necessarily capture these type of youth given our sample sizes, as well as decisions like that are based at the discretion of the country, and in some countries we know that that's still something that they're not pursuing, but it's definitely on our radar. And despite that, I still do think there's, of course, it's quite important to continue to collect this data as we work on those types of methodologies. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay. Are there any other very pressing questions? Okay, I see one hand raised. Can you tell us your name and your question, please? Yes. Okay. The person with the hand raised.
Merci. Je vais intervenir en français. Je me nomme Cécile Nzolong, je suis de la Guinée équatoriale, je suis démographe à l'Institut national de la statistique. Ma question ou mon commentaire porte sur les résultats présentés par notre collègue du Sénégal concernant le travail non rémunéré. Quand on regarde la désagrégation par le sexe, on a l'impression que les femmes travaillent un peu plus dans les travaux domestiques que les hommes. D'où ma question de savoir, est-ce que quand on aborde la question de genre, il ne serait pas aussi avantageux peut-être de relever peut-être le niveau d'instruction qui peut cacher beaucoup de choses derrière, ou ici simplement vous avez présenté juste la désagrégation par sexe. Peut-être au niveau du pays, vous avez présenté au niveau aussi la désagrégation par niveau d'instruction. Merci.
Thank you very much. Effectivement, dans ce qu'on a présenté ici, on n'a pas mis l'accent sur le niveau d'éducation, mais effectivement, dans le rapport, on a analysé également l'occupation de l'individu par rapport à son niveau d'éducation. Donc, ces informations sont analysées dans le rapport détaillé, et je précise aussi peut-être que le rapport est publié sur le site de l'ANSD, www.ansd.sn, comme Sénégal. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any last pressing question? Oh, yes. Okay, and any last, okay, I've got one. I feel like I'm hosting an auction. Okay, we're having our last question from the back then. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank the presenters for their presentations this afternoon. A brief question. Given the challenges from Antigua and Barbuda, a small country in the Caribbean, given the challenges that we've recently seen in terms of conducting surveys, low response rates, challenges even with this round of census, longer times in the field in terms of enumeration, participation by households, how do you suggest that we have this as a sustainable data collection program in terms of introducing these new surveys? And given the challenges that we have in actually conducting the basic surveys that we actually need to do. Thank you.
Okay, so I feel like that's maybe a question for all three. I'll start with Ileana. Do you want to respond?
Thank you for the question. Well, we're hoping that these revised guidelines will assist you with some of the lessons learned that other countries have put here together to avoid going through the same challenges they have faced. You will find a lot of instruments that have developed been developed, a lot of standards, so you can build up on this. As I mentioned in my presentation, we have developed a set of standardized questions that you can include in an existing survey. For example, we didn't have the time to talk about modular approaches, but this is a way also to conduct surveys, taking advantage of existing surveys that in your country might be more feasible to conduct while you get the resources to get to conduct a standalone survey. And I also want to mention or take back to what Graciela said in the morning. I think it's very relevant. Time use surveys are costly, but it's more costly not have the data. So, yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to that question? Okay.
I'd suggest you do a mixed survey. Then we'll give you lots of support. Yeah, I'm not sure that I have anything more to say beyond that, not to be facetious. But yeah, I mean, these are challenges that I think countries, of course, are grappling with. And, you know, the mixed survey team at UNICEF is very aware of that, and, you know, thinks through this process as we work with the countries to customize. So, yes, I encourage you to do a mix.
Did you want? Sorry? It's okay. Okay. So I don't think we still have Mongolia on the line. So I'll maybe just add, because that question is actually what's driven a lot of the work at ILO to develop these modular time use tools for attachment to labour force surveys. The idea being that the Labour Force Survey is a very established survey in many, many national contexts. It's part of the national survey infrastructure. And so the attachment of a light time use diary or a stylized model to those surveys can aid countries in reducing costs and other resource needs. And I would say as well that what's made that possible has been these recent developments in standards. So at the ILO, that's been the ICLS, the International Conference of Labour Statisticians, held every 5 years, and the resolutions passed there to promote the measurement of all paid and unpaid work and bring that within the remit of labour force statistics. And also just to flag that this work has been very much in step with the UNSD EG work to produce the latest guidance on time use statistics. So in lockstep there to produce light modules for attachment to LFS that countries can consider in the full knowledge that those modules are aligned to all of the international standards and to the emerging best practices that are coming out of this EGTUS group that you've heard so much about. So it just leaves me to thank all of our panelists. Thank you so much, panelists, for your time and your excellent presentations. I hope that the panelists in the room will be here for the reception and can be asked questions there. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Colleagues, thank you. This was our last section for today. Just a quick announcement, colleagues. For those who are having parking tickets, you can go to the registration desk for exchanging your parking tickets. Kindly note that all the presentation will be loaded on the website. And tomorrow, colleagues, we are starting at 8:30 with the registration, and 9 o'clock we are starting with the program. And kindly, please join us for our cocktail network session starting now. And good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.